Hey guys, it's Cara from Enchanted Vines, and I am here to make a transitional wreath with you. I'm sure, like many of us, after all the holiday decorations come down, our houses just feel bare and kind of cold. So instead of just hopping right to spring, because it's gonna still snow and we're gonna still have that cold weather, I always recommend creating a transitional piece, which is usually just something really neutral or a lot of greenery. So for today, we are going to be making our design around this ribbon, which I think is so pretty. Got some new ribbon in this week. I want to take it for a test run. So what we're going to do first is I've already cleaned off this grapevine. Okay, so I cut off all the stray pieces. There were pine needles in here. I cleaned those out. And so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make a hook. Okay, so I use the grapevine wire. I'm going to find one of the thick pieces on top, okay, and I'm going to feed this wire through, and then we're just going to twist the tops, the tails I mean, okay. And what we're doing here is we're making a hook. Because this grapevine wire looks just like grapevine, we are going to mark it with just a piece of ribbon. So for this, you don't need to do anything fancy. You can just tie it in a little knot. If you're making this for customers, it's just a nice little guide so that when they take it out of the package or the box, they just know your intention on where to hang it, okay? There we go. So enough of me, fancy camera work time. So because we're gonna start with the bow first, just lower this just a little bit. I'm gonna put this on. So what I did was I used an easy bow maker for this, which I'm kind of just getting used to. But I'm liking it for some of like the bigger, fancier bows. So what I'm going to do is I had zip tied this to secure it. I am going to snip off the tail of the zip tie. And then I'm going to use a piece of wire and just feed it through that area that the zip tie was on. Okay, so I used a white zip tie because we're using white ribbon and we don't want it to stick out. So we're going to go and tie this nice and tight on the back. And now we're going to add it to our wreath. So my go-to ribbon is 2.5 inches with wire. That way they're nice and structured. 4-inch still intimidates me. I use some for Christmas, so I'm getting there, but for my typical wreaths, I go with the 2.5 inch. So, okay. I am going to center this on the side of the wreath. We're going to be making a crescent wreath, which means we're going to be covering the side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the wire and I'm going to feed it through the grapevine. You can also wrap it just around. However, I like to hide all the mechanics. So if you go and tuck all the wires through the base of the grapevine, people aren't going to see where it's attached. Okay, because we're also going to do some final stages at the end to clean up the back of our wreath as well. So what I'm doing is I'm just twisting this in the back so it's nice and tight. And then I'm going to take this little knot of wire that I have right here, and I'm going to just tuck it in between some pieces of the grapevine, okay? We're going to put a little moss over it too, but it's just a nice way to make sure that we're not scratching anyone's doors. All right. So here we have our beautiful bird's nest ribbon, and I chose this because it's neutral. It's not quite gray, but it is a little bit. It's got grayish blue on it. It's got some gray birds. You know, again, just neutral across the board. So what we're going to do is we're going to dovetail this, which means I'm going to fold this in half, like so. You see? Fold it in half, and then I'm going to cut upward at an angle without chopping my finger off. And we're going to go ahead and repeat that for all the tails. So I'm going to go through. This bow has 4 tails, so we're going to make 4 dovetails. This is a nice way to finish things, even if it's a gift, something like that. Just instead of having like a raw edge, it's definitely just a nice little way to polish your bow. Okay, so now we've got our bow in place. And as we're working, we're definitely going to need to like fluff and refluff, but for now, this is what we're working with. So I'm going to start off with ficus. And a piece of ficus has usually about three branches on it. I'm going to make it so that we have about 4 or 5 pieces. So I'm just going to cut this. And if you see this, I did a big shopping order last night, and the variegated ficus, which is this, was sold out. So I need to find a different distributor than I usually use. So what I like about the ficus is that it's so structured and it's so easy to work with and set parameters with. Even if in the end the ficus isn't really going to show, I still like using it as a base. And it's very inexpensive. One piece of ficus might cost like $1. So it's definitely cost effective, and it just is a good foundation. All right. Let me just finish cutting this. Okay. Let's go. So I am using my Surebonder glue dipping pan, which is right here. And I know some people like glue guns, some people like electric skillets. For me, I think this is a good product. I have had electric skillets and they absolutely work as well. They work the same. However, I feel like they need to get replaced. Whereas I've had this for a couple of years and it still works exactly the same as it did on the first day. So for me, I think it's just a little bit more of an investment and it's worth it. For the longest time, I was using glue guns. However, with glue guns, it's a lot of starting and stopping. And with this, it's just, you know, you're going to dip and go. So it's almost like hands-free, which I think is better because it doesn't mess up your flow. Sometimes, you know, you have something in mind of what you're going to do, and then you get distracted and you end up doing something different. So for me, this just keeps me right on track. So even pieces like this that you could toss away, I think they're worth keeping. I think whether you use them on the exterior, like so, or you could even use them in here just to have that texture. It's worth it not to just toss these. They definitely have value. And you know how it is. Everything adds up when we're designing, and if you're like me, I tend to get carried away and then add up afterwards. So I definitely want to maximize my materials. All right, so it's our last piece. And what I'm using this for is I'm setting parameters. It doesn't mean that we're not going to go beyond this point. Of course we can if the design is going in that direction. But the idea is that we're just setting up a structure that we're going to build inside of. Okay? So for this design, I was thinking of doing, this is a maybe, but definitely working with some blues and creams, and then we're going to add some other items in. Okay? So to start, I'm going to put blues in first. These hydrangeas are good because you can either split them up and kind of pepper them around, or if you wanted them to have like a really big impact, you could absolutely just put them together. You could either zip tie them together or just put them in place together on your base. For this, I think we're gonna separate them. Or we are gonna separate them. Let's make a decision, Cara. All right. So I like to work from the bow out. And for me, I'm very OCD. So if I do something once, there's a good chance I'm going to do it twice. So just to start, I put one up here. Now I'm going to repeat. Put one right here. Whenever I'm working on the bottom half of a grapevine, I like to try and slide it up it's just more likely to get caught on the grapevine wreath. So in addition to the glue and any other mechanics we use, it's just naturally getting kind of woven in. Now we're gonna go back up top. Put one right here. And it's okay if the stem is going out the back. We're going to be cleaning this up afterwards. So just place it the way you want to. It's better to have something too long than too short. Although we can fix too short, it's just a lot easier if we don't have to. Okay. And we're gonna put a third here. So as you can see, I'm going a little bit beyond our parameter. Totally fine. Just need to grab one more. All right, dipping it in the glue. And here you go. Looks like I've gone beyond the parameter on both sides. Okay. Tuck that one in a little bit. All right, now we're gonna go in with these white peonies. Now for these, I like the blooms. I think that the greenery is a little bit artificial and cheap looking. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna slide the greens down and not use them. Like on the hydrangeas, I think the foliage looks really lifelike and it adds to it, but I think this foliage in particular detracts. So we're gonna get it out of there. All right. So I'm very curious how many people have already taken down their Christmas decorations. I have to say, I put mine up so early that by the end of Christmas, I was kind of done with our big tree. So I took that down on Christmas night, right before midnight. But I left my pencil trees up. So we still have 3 trees up, just not the big honking one that is hogging our living room, or was hogging our living room. You know, sometimes you just get the urge to be done. That's where I was at, so. Okay. Now we're gonna start going in with our cream peonies, and we're gonna follow the same pattern. So I'm gonna go top corner behind our blue hydrangea. Then we're gonna go bottom corner. This a little lower. All right, going back up top. So I'm kind of like peppering these throughout so that we keep a nice balance as we're working. Once you kind of establish what your recipe is, even when it's a different season and different materials, you get what the basis is and you can kind of like go somewhat quickly. Not that it's ever a rush, but when it comes naturally to you, it's muscle memory and you just find yourself, you know, buzzing through things pretty quickly. One more we're going to use. So this one's going to be kind of tucked under. All right, so in just a few steps, this is already coming along pretty well, I'd say. Okay, we definitely have a structure to it. We have a balance, we have our color scheme. So now we're gonna go in with some, with some texture. I had pulled these, but decisions on the fly, right? I think we're gonna use a little bit of these chartreuse hydrangeas. Let's just use 4 out of the 5 here. Doesn't have to be exactly coordinating with the bow. I think this still gives it the same nice neutral feel. Come up with one here. Okay. It's okay if they touch, but you don't really want things like so jammed in. when you're trying to create things that look natural, if you think about how things grow in nature, things don't just grow, you know, straight. They grow in with their heads facing different ways. And they say to keep it airy enough and just imagine that a butterfly could fly through it if it wanted to. Yes, I know that's corny, but it's the visual I use and it works. So that's why I always repeat it, even though at my workshops people always laugh at me. All right. There we go. Now I can tell here that this this peony is squished. So what I'm going to do is pull it out and just reposition. I think that if something is irking you in the beginning, I would just address it in the moment. Otherwise, what's going to happen is you're going to continue to build around it. And at the end, you're still going to have to do it. And by then, the glue is a lot harder than if you just did it while you were working. All right, so some different things. What are we going to use? I don't feel like these are from the same family. This is more of a blue-based eucalyptus, and this is more like yellowish green. So I'm going to pass on that, which means I got to find something else. All right. So I have these little palms. So I thought these tied in really nicely with the eggs. So we're going to use some of these. Just kind of scatter them throughout. I haven't really done Instagram Lives. I think I've done one. So I'm not sure if you can comment, but if you can, I would love to know where you're from. And also in general, if you see any of my videos and there's something specific that you want to see, just let me know and I'd be happy to throw a tutorial on YouTube. All right, so we're going to strategically place our palms. Get you to what you want to be looking at. All right, so again, top corner. I'm just a creature of habit with some of these things. Muscle memory runs strong here. Okay, because I'm working on the bottom half of the wreath, I am going to feed that up. Now, I want these to have a good presence about them, so I'm going to put one right here. And then I'm going to put one right up here. So it's a little staggered, up, down, or up, down, up. Okay. Now we're going to go and repeat on the bottom. So I put one in, then I want to put one right here. So let's get that front and center look. And then I'm going to do one here in the bottom corner. So I have one of these cherry blossoms, and I thought they really do pick up on the colors very well. So what is a good way to use them? One thing I like to do with longer stems is to put them corner to corner. And what that does is it, obviously increases the size of your wreath, but it also creates kind of that flair to it. It's something a little bit unique, and it just, increases the airiness of your design. These would also be really nice in an arrangement. Good Lord. Some of these stems, I don't know why they make them quite so thick, but that's for another time. Okay, so we're going to start here in the top corner. And go in. So I don't ever just glue something and have it sit on the grapevine, I always have it tucked in somewhere so that it's gonna hold, okay? So look how pretty that looks. So now we're gonna go and we're gonna repeat that down here. So I wanna find a piece that's similar in length. Here we go. Okay. And now I always like to have things that are a little bit unexpected. When you think of, we'll go back to the garden example, things don't grow neat in just like one category. Things are growing through each other. So I like when things are kind of woven in. It's, again, I think it's a little bit unexpected and it creates that visual interest that kind of keeps people looking at it a little bit longer. I don't want anything to go to waste, so even though this piece doesn't have a lot on it, I'm going to use it. I have this breaking up our flowers, so this is a bit of a disruptor. And then we've got this one left, and it's too big, so what we're going to do is we are going to snip it in half, you know, at a place that it makes sense to break. So this is the top of another stem. That's how we're going to use it. And if the flower is in the way, if I have to glue and stick this through the grapevine, it's not really going to go through smoothly. So I'm just going to pull that off. You're not going to see it anyway, so you're not really wasting anything. But here we're going to do another one of these that's kind of just trailing and hugging the curve of our wreath. All right, we got one more. I'm going to put this right above our bow. Actually, let me grab another one. Yesterday I spent 8.5 hours cleaning and sorting this workshop to get it ready for spring. So I'm still learning where I put things, because you know how at some point you just kind of stuff things wherever you can get them. So, all right. So for this one, we're going to go under. Let me trim this a little bit so they're even. Okay, we're going to repeat that step here. And have that kind of go in between our flowers. Okay. Oh my gosh, this is so perfect. I wasn't even planning on using it. So, okay, we're gonna go with this eucalyptus. Ah, I love when things just work out. So this is so pretty. It is kind of a chartreuse green. It's got some pink on it. And these are the types of stems I like the most because you can slide them up. Don't slide them up like too hard. You don't want to pop the top off. But this gives you a little control as far as if you want it sparse or if you want it to kind of, you know, be concentrated. All right. Here we go. See, when I get all excited about something like that, as geeky as it might be, it definitely reinforces to me that, like, this is why I do what I do, because it does excite me. I mean, it's wreath making, but I love it. It is something I'm passionate about, and, you know, I geek out when I find the perfect greenery, apparently. So, back in we go. And now we're going to go through, we don't want to see the base of this grapevine at all, okay, aside from here. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be going in first to make sure that any of the more bare spots are covered. And then I also want some of this sticking out. Again, we're talking about this disruptive placement of flowers. It looks so much more natural doing it this way. I always like something trailing off at the ends. Okay, so I pulled that off. So if you should, you know, get carried away with your floral muscles and you pull something off, all I do is I just take the tip. You can just pop it on, but that worries me that once you've pulled it off, it's kind of damaged. So I'm just going to take this tip and I'm just going to dip it in the glue and then just put it back on. You don't want to have a customer have things just falling off because then they might question the quality of the materials. So, all right, back at it we go. Here, now down below, start to do the same. And again, it's okay if things are sticking way out in the back because we are going to address that when we do our polishing steps. This goes so well. And I want to make sure that this is spread out evenly. It's always helpful to just kind of take a step back when you're working to get a better picture of it. Let me see. And because everything's so malleable, you can definitely play around with things if you find that they are on top of each other or you need a space filled. I'm going to say we need something here, and I think we need another blue hydrangea. It's not an exact, you know, one-to-one, but it's still balanced, and that's the real goal of it. So oh, but I could put one underneath. I don't want to crowd the bow too much, so these are all different sizes. So I'm going to take the smallest one to tuck it under that bow. Move my bow out of the way so I don't get glue on it. Again, just tuck. Now in doing that, I realize that this cream peony is covered. I just pulled the top off it. See, this is how strong this glue is. All right, I'm gonna just use another one for now. We'll save it after. Okay, so the reason why I pulled that one out was because it was just covering up too much of our peony. We want to make sure that all of our flowers kind of have a good, we have a good view of them. Okay, now that I'm looking at this, and I'm sure part of it is because of what I just did, but this bow is getting swallowed up. So one thing I like to do if I want a bow to like really have a lot of dimension is I put it on a floral pick, okay? So what we're gonna do is we are going to take this off. Even though I balled it up nice and tight, it's better to fix it before we go any further. Oh, I really did tighten that. Okay. Let's see if I can get this off and undone. Okay. Not so bad. Not so bad. See, you can see like all these pieces sticking out. We're gonna address that. Okay. So to keep a bow floating well above our florals, one trick that you can use is to put it on a floral pick, okay? So what you do is you take your floral pick. It does have this wire on it. However, this wire is too flimsy. If we were looking at maybe real flowers, it would be enough. But for this, we have this heavy gauge wire. So we're going to use the wire that's on the bow. So I'm going to put the head right behind the center, the back of the bow. And now we're going to twist it all the way down. Make sure it's nice and tight. And then just to ensure that this is going to stay on, we have our floral tape, which is just really tacky. It's not sticky, but it's going to hold this in place. It's also going to make it look nicer if somebody should see it. So like if you're doing a flower arrangement and you need to add one of these to make a stem longer, this is going to hide that. Okay. See, do things live and you gotta work on the spot. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to reposition this so that this bow gets the attention that she deserves. So I dip the pick in glue. And then I put it in like so. That looks so much better, I think. Well, I don't know what you think. So again, this bow was made with an easy bow maker, which I didn't know how to use for years, and all of a sudden it clicked, and I've been having a pretty good time with it. Okay, step back time. Let's see. I think we're pretty much there. I'm gonna add a little bit more of this eucalyptus. And I have berries too. So I'm going to put a piece of eucalyptus here. And this is what I do at my workshops is I ask people to kind of hold their wreath out or to take a step back. Because all of a sudden when I was up close, I couldn't tell that there was this hole there. But now that I'm standing back, I see that it's like glaring at me. Same thing. Here needs something. And right here. And right here. So this is like a really good exercise when you're doing things. I know sometimes people say, you know, done is better than perfect, which I do agree with. However, in the moment, this is a way that you can just correct anything while you're working so that you're happy with the final product. Okay, so I'm sliding these all up. Give them a quick trim. Okay, and now we're going to target all those areas that I just pointed out. Starting here, the bow is always the most important part. If you have a bare area there, it's all gonna look off because that is really the part that's kind of demanding the most attention. Okay, I'm gonna add one right up here. Then I ended this side with that trailing off, so we need to match that. Like so. And down here is not as full as it should be. So here with this. Underneath. All right, and then we have one more spot. One more spot, and I'm thinking right here. All right, lovely, lovely. All right, now we're gonna go in with some of these cream and peach berries. And for this, I usually don't waste a whole stem. What I do is I just pull these apart, okay? So instead of getting just one long branch, you end up with 3. These each have so many berries on them that it's definitely okay to break them up. Even if I was doing an arrangement, I would probably separate them. So I'm going to start my favorite place, which is the upper corner. Now we're going to repeat. Go to this bottom corner. And it's nice to add in all different types of texture. Like we could just say, okay, the palms are it, or the ficus is it. But What makes things look more lifelike is all the texture and all the little details that you put in. That's gonna help your work, like, set your work apart. Like, I love me some home scents, but when I see those wreaths and how cheap and manufactured they are, it hurts my wreath maker's soul. It really does. So what we want to do is show the true art form of wreath making by really getting into the details. Makes me happy, and I think it makes my clients happy as well to just take that time. Okay, we are getting there. We are getting there. So, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and repeat. So far we have 2 pieces in. And that's right. And because this glue is so hot, you can see I usually try and hold it over the tray. I definitely have damaged my floor a little bit, but anything is better than my hand. So I would always just be like cognizant of if you have glue that's dripping and what is it gonna hit, because you don't want it to be you. All right, 2 more pieces. See, I think that's so pretty. Just like in a real garden, everything is just growing in between one another. Okay. So here is what our wreath looks like. And again, it's transitional. It's not super springy. I mean, I know it's a little springy, but it's not over the top, hot pink, you know, bright colors. I do consider this transitional. I think that the ribbon is transitional. So the final thing that we're gonna do in our wreath making is polish it. Okay, so if you're looking at the wreath, all these things sticking up, they are all door scratchers. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna flip our wreath over and we're gonna start to trim all those pieces. Okay. And as I'm trimming, if you can see that the part that I'm taking off is the part that had the glue on it. So snipping it isn't enough. We need to cut it and then we need to go back and add more glue in. I'm from New England and I don't bring my wreaths in when the weather's bad. So I like to really go above and beyond with the mechanics to make sure that things are gonna last. And then the other thing is, I don't think wreaths are made to just last a season. So I think that, you know, somebody should get several years out of their wreaths. Normally when I change mine out, it's because I'm sick of them more than it's because, you know, they're falling apart or they're faded. So I want my clients to have the same experience, that their wreath is going to last them for several seasons. And I give them care instructions too on how to increase the longevity of their wreath. One of the big things is using Krylon UV spray for floral, which we'll go over. Okay, so now I've trimmed everything down, and we're gonna go through and glue. And as we're gluing, I use this preserved moss. And so what we're gonna do is anywhere that we glue, we're just gonna add a little bit of this, okay? Aesthetically, it looks better. We're hiding the mechanics. And then also, this is another thing to safeguard against scratching. So we're gonna go through. This is my, so wireless glue guns, if you're gonna use a glue gun, is definitely the way to go. This is also from Shore Bonder, and I use the Gorilla glue sticks for this. And I gotta tell you, it works so well. And I also have to say, if you burn yourself, you will be cussing. My daughter, I'm not sure she knew I swore until I really started working with high temp materials. Now she can't unhear it. All right, so look, we're just going through. If I see a stem, just making sure that it's nice and secure. Okay, and I'm gonna pat it down. I don't wanna get stuck on it, so just a little quick pat just to make sure it's in place is all you need to do. All right, so there's glue hairs everywhere here. Goes to the territory. So once you're done with all of your gluing, you can take just your regular hairdryer. So you can just take your regular hairdryer and just go through this at a medium temp, or if you're going to use a higher temp or a hotter temp, I would just keep it further away. Certain materials, like if you had something that was plastic or even like the artificial pine for winter, those things are going to melt if you get too much heat on them. And once they're melted, obviously they don't look real at all. So what I would do is go through here and, you know, blow dry the back of it. And then I would flip it over and do the same. Okay. And then the absolute last thing that I do, like I said, is the Krylon spray. Now this is like spray paint, so you have to do it outside. There's, you know, fumes to it. It does dry really quickly, but this stuff will absolutely extend the life of anything. So before any wreaths leave my workshop, I always make sure that I do the UV protectant spray. Also on my care cards, when people receive orders from me, it has instructions and it includes, you know, the importance of using this annually. This you can buy at Michael's. It's probably like $10 or $11 with a coupon, and you get a lot of use out of it. So what I would recommend doing is taking this, and for a good like 30 seconds, 40 seconds, just go through and get it all. Get your bow, get your greenery, get your flowers. You don't need to do the actual grapevine base. It's not going to hurt it by any means, but you just want to make sure that you give this a heavy application, because especially when things are exposed to the sun, our greenery is the first to go, and it looks blue and then it looks cheap. So, all right. So here is our final wreath. Let's see. I think it's got all the vibes of a little cheery entryway without being over the top. So let me know what you think about this wreath in this video, and I thank you for tuning in.